I don't know what slum you people crawled out of, but this is a decent, God-fearing community, and we will not have your jungle music and your hooting and hollering destroying our peace. That's how it started. Not a knock on the door, not a neighborly, hey, could you keep it down? No, she just came at us with all the subtlety of a bulldozer in Sunday traffic, standing there on my pool deck with a face like she'd bitten into a lemon, spitting that line like it was gospel. And for a second, you just stare, because you can't believe a human being would go full 1950s villain before the ice in your drink even melts. It was a perfect Saturday. One of those days you hope for when you're a kid, mowing other people's lawns, promising yourself that one day you'll have your own slice of heaven. Blue skies so clear it looked photoshopped, a breeze keeping the heat in check, and me, finally in my first real house, the kind you sign a mortgage for with sweaty hands. That pool out back, it was the crown jewel, the finish line I'd crawled toward for years, double shifts and all. Mike and Chris were over, both of them more like brothers than friends. Mike's built like a linebacker but screams at the sight of a spider. Chris? The guy could talk his way out of a ticket from his own grandmother, all quick wit and faster hands. And if you ever need someone to lighten a mood, you call Chris. We'd spent the afternoon half in the pool, half on the makeshift volleyball court, the kind of petty competitive match that grown men turn into the Olympics if no one stops them. Music was playing, earth, wind, and fire, nothing scandalous, nothing louder than the wind, just three guys and a little Bluetooth speaker and a lot of laughter. That's when I noticed her. She stood there like a rejected extra from a political drama, electric blue blazer, hair that looked welded in place, eyes narrowed to slits. And right away you just know, right? Some people you spot and instantly think, this person collects complaints like baseball cards. I try to stay polite. Can I help you, ma'am? That's when she unloaded on us about slums and elements and how she was the president of the HOA, as if that was supposed to mean something outside of this little suburban bubble. I'm not proud to say I froze for a second. Chris, though, he didn't. He shot right back, voice like ice. Excuse me? What did you just say? And then it just spiraled. She started shouting about private communities and standards, acting like we dragged the apocalypse in on our heels. And then, the cherry on top, she pulled out her phone, thumb hammering away, telling us she was calling the police. 911, no less. We'll see who belongs here when they arrive. You ever watch someone create a crisis, paint themselves as the victim in real time? That's what she did. She spun this whole yarn for the dispatcher, made it sound like we were trespassers, dangerous, even maybe armed. While she's doing this, Mike, Chris, and I are just standing there in our own backyard, our only crime being a little too much fun. The cooler wasn't even full of beer, just water and Gatorade. But when you're on the wrong end of the narrative, the facts stop matching real quick. Just stay cool, guys, I said, heart pounding. I know the drill. Don't feed the beast. Let the show play out. Mike just got out of the pool, arms crossed, looking like the last person in the world who'd ever need backup. Chris looked ready to explode. And then she wrapped up her call, smile smug as sin, convinced the cavalry was coming for her. It wasn't a question of if, only when. Sirens started wailing in the distance, getting closer, and I felt my stomach knot up. I've been on the other side of this scene too many times, not as a suspect, but as the guy in uniform, the one who's supposed to sort it out. But I know better than most how sideways these things can go. 2 patrol cars rolled up, red and blue flashing across the lawns, neighbors peeking out their windows like it was the 4th of July. Out came Miller and Sanchez, good cops, by the book, from a different precinct but not strangers. Ms. Davenport, because of course her name was Davenport, leapt into action, her voice going all frail and victimy, laying it on thick. Thank God you're here, officers. These men became so aggressive, I was terrified. Miller and Sanchez took it all in, gave us a quick once-over. I saw recognition flicker in Miller's eyes, but the badge doesn't erase suspicion. It just makes the dance a little more complicated. They asked me, "Is this your residence?" "Yes, sir," I replied, calm as I could. Gave them the rundown, but Ms. Davenport wasn't letting up. "He just moved in, he's not one of us." "They threatened me," she wailed. This was it, the crossroads. She didn't just want us quiet. She wanted us erased. I looked at my friends, saw the same decision cross all our faces. Time to stop playing defense. I pulled my wallet from my shorts, not for my driver's license, but my badge. Detective J. Johnson, 12th Precinct. These are Officers Mike Peterson and Chris Jones, also from the 12th. And you want to talk about a twist? The air changed in an instant. Miller just grinned, shaking his head like he couldn't believe the luck. Ms. Davenport's brain hit a wall. She literally stammered. "You can't be." "Not what, ma'am?" Chris pressed, his voice razor-sharp. "The rest of it is a blur." Miller, to his credit, didn't let her weasel out. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a serious offense. I suggest you head home unless you want to make this official." For the first time, the Queen had to retreat. She didn't look back, just marched away, blazer flapping, dignity trailing behind. When she was gone, Miller finally relaxed. "Man, I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Jay. President of the HOA, huh? You really picked a winner." And we laughed, sort of. The kind of laughter that's equal parts relief and something a little darker. But I knew it wasn't over. People like her don't learn lessons. They just reload. Sure enough, 2 days later, a thick envelope from the HOA landed in my mailbox. 3 violations. First, unauthorized installation of a non-permanent recreational structure, the floating volleyball net. Second, excessive noise and public nuisance, which was rich, given that my neighbors weren't even home. Third, conduct unbecoming of a resident, the classic, vague, catch-all rule. $300 in fines, with the threat of a lien if I didn't pay up. It was brilliant in its own sick way. She'd lost with the cops, so now she was coming at me with the rule book. But she made a mistake. She pushed me to fight back. Mike and Chris and I sat up that night, combing through the HOA bylaws like we were prepping for a raid. We found our angle, the appeals process. Every resident had the right to a hearing at the board meeting. I was going to use her precious rules against her. I talked to my neighbors, found out she'd been tormenting them for years. Garden gnomes, strollers, you name it. But the best intel came from Frank, an ex-board member. "She's obsessed with procedure," he said. "You catch her breaking her own rules, you might just have a shot." That was all I needed. The board meeting was a circus. Ms. Davenport sat at the center, the queen bee, her cronies flanking her. When my appeal finally came up, I laid it out, section by section, cool and methodical. The net? Not a structure. No foundation, no violation. The noise complaint? Can you name another resident who complained? They couldn't. The conduct unbecoming nonsense? I slid the official police report across the table, stamped unfounded. The room was dead silent. She lost it, stood up, shrieking, trying to bulldoze the meeting. I just kept calm, pointed out the process, the bylaws, the facts. But her grip was tight. She called for a vote, and every hand went up. Kangaroo court, start to finish. I left that meeting feeling the full weight of the fix being in. That's when Mike had the idea, the move that changed everything. She filed a false police report against 3 cops. She dismissed an official police investigation in front of a room full of witnesses. That's not just an HOA problem. That's a department problem. We filed a formal complaint with Internal Affairs, on ourselves. Let the department investigate the whole mess, on the record, with real consequences if anyone lied. It was a huge risk. The IA office isn't friendly turf, even for the good guys. Lieutenant Davis, hard as nails, smart, a reputation for zero tolerance, heard us out, stone-faced. When we laid out the evidence, he saw what we saw, a pattern of targeted harassment, a woman trying to bend the system at every level to her will. While the investigation churned, the Cold War ramped up. Ms. Davenport started watching me from her windows. Every time I mowed the lawn, there she was, glaring. It was psychological warfare. So I did what any stubborn guy would do. I fought surveillance with surveillance. Top-shelf cameras, cloud backups, every angle covered. It unsettled her. Suddenly, she wasn't quite so bold. Then came the escalation. A dead squirrel in a shoebox, a note. "This is what happens to rats. Go back to the ghetto where you belong." It was hate, pure and simple. I caught the delivery on camera, a masked figure, late at night. And 3 days earlier, footage of Ms. Davenport handing cash to her grandson, gesturing at my house. It didn't take Sherlock Holmes to connect those dots. We turned it all over to Davis. That kicked things into overdrive. Hate crime investigation, subpoenas, the whole 9 yards. Her husband, big shot lawyer, sent a cease and desist, claiming I was harassing his poor wife with my cameras. Davis just laughed. The chief himself called the law firm, made it clear. "Stop. or we go public. Our lawyer, Sarah Nash, a civil rights pit bull, filed a lawsuit so thorough it made the HOA board scatter. 2 members quit. One sent a sworn statement that she'd voted under duress. The rest, facing real personal liability for the first time in their lives, fell apart like wet cardboard. Ms. Davenport finally had to sit for a deposition, and under Sarah's cross, the stories just collapsed. Her grandson admitted everything to Davis. She'd paid him to deliver the threat. Internal Affairs finished their work. We were exonerated. She was recommended for prosecution. Our civil case, with the whole story and all the evidence, became the talk of the town. And then, just like that, it was over. Her lawyer called, wanted to settle. They offered money, but we didn't care about that. We wanted her apology, in public, in writing, and for her to plead guilty. We wanted the truth, out in the open, to finally outshine all the lies. And we got it. She wrote the letter, resigned from the board, pled guilty to filing a false police report. The news picked it up, her face on every channel. She was the villain now, not just in my story, but in the eyes of the whole city. The new board, led by neighbors who'd lived in fear, rewrote the bylaws to take away the power she'd abused. The pool net is back up. The music is back on. For the first time in months, I look at my backyard and see my home, not a battlefield. Mike and Chris are here again, beers in hand, ready to play. The world isn't perfect, not by a long shot. But this patch of grass, this rectangle of blue water, that's my peace, earned and reclaimed. And if you ask me what justice looks like, sometimes it's as simple as 3 friends, a volleyball, and the sound of earth, wind and fire on a Saturday afternoon, no one left to shout them down. If you've ever had to fight a bully with more power than sense, or you've watched a neighborhood tear itself apart over lines in a rulebook, tell me, where do you stand? Was this justice, or just another chapter in the endless war over what community really means? Drop a comment below, share your story, and let's talk about what's right, what's fair, and how we fix what's broken, one backyard at a time.